Well, good evening, everybody. What's up? How you doing? How was your holiday and all of that good there stuff and what have you not? So look, we are going to have a conversation tonight. I'm putting a disclaimer out there right now. Don't be mad at me. You know that I am notorious for having the hard conversations, and tonight is no different. I want to talk to you tonight about why some women, and I just tell you, my mom literally just said this to me yesterday. Why some women are just like guns blazing, wholeheartedly committed to, I don't need no man. And what I'm going to do, because y'all know how I do, what I'm going to do is I'm going to offer you a perspective from both sides of the I don't need no man conversation. And what I mean by that is this: I'm going to offer you a clinical perspective of what it looks like when that statement is made and it's actually in a positive context and there's no, lurking issues going on underneath the surface behind that statement. But I'm also going to share with you the flip side of what that looks like and how it can be problematic. And where you are on that fence is totally up to you. It's not for me to judge or criticize, but I think that it is a very, very powerful conversation that needs to be had because it's showing up. It's showing up in our relationships. It's showing up in our communities. Heck, it's showing up in our jobs in a lot of different ways. So part of what made me decide to have this conversation, other than the fact that it keeps coming up in various ways in therapy sessions with my clients, I, in many ways, was raised by a very strong black woman. And I have conversations with my girlfriends a lot of the times about the pros and the cons of that. And you can disagree, it doesn't matter to me. I'm not looking for you to co-sign what I'm saying. Just sharing a perspective. But there's definitely pros and cons that arise from being raised by strong, independent women, whether you're black, white, it doesn't matter, right? Well, what are those pros and cons? One of the things that I've frequently discussed with my girlfriends is how when you're raised by an independent woman, oftentimes what happens is you are so busy being independent that you don't recognize the relational part of, particularly in an intimate partnership dynamic. What do I mean by that? For example, I grew up on a farm. I was taught how to change oil. I was taught how to tune up a vehicle. I was taught how to change my own tire. I was taught how to put gas in the car. I was taught how to check the oil, how to check the transmission fluid. I know when a car sounds funny and it's not riding properly. I understand a lot of guy speak, if you will, when it comes to automotive maintenance. So can that be problematic if I have somebody saying to me, oh, well, you need to do this and you need to do that and you need to do the other? And what I found in therapy that happens with a lot of women is they're so busy screaming from the mountaintops how independent that they are that they forget that we do have gender roles. And I understand, I'm not saying that those gender roles have to be stereotypical, but what I'm saying is that we each need to be able to be authentically who we are, right? And we were born female, which means that there are certain nuances, if you will, that come with being female. If you're going to be the person that wears the proverbial pants and skirt, don't complain about the fact that you're wearing the pants if you want to wear the skirt. What do I mean? So one of the things that I speak with my female clients about frequently, and whether I'm working with them in a couples context or not, is this: you cannot, because of your independence, you cannot control, manipulate, dominate, and otherwise in many ways emasculate your man and then get angry because he doesn't man up. Well, Dr. Pitts, if he would do X, Y, and Z, and what I say to my female clients is, have you given him space to do that? And here's the caveat. Him doing it doesn't mean that he's going to do it exactly the way you say. Because why? You didn't commit to, you're not married to, you're not dating to, you're not in an otherwise romantic relationship with yourself. You're into a romantic relationship, or perhaps desire to be in a romantic relationship with a partner who's uniquely who they are. So then why do you feel the need to constantly tell them what to do, how to do, when to do? That's a question that you have to ask. But that's where the independence can become problematic for you, because there's no temperance. So I just wanted, excuse me, I just wanted to lay the foundation with that, because a big part of why people show up the way they do is because of learned behavior, right? So I don't, for example, I don't need a man to change a tire for me, but I'll allow him to because I don't want to break my fingernails. That's not rocket science, right? But what does it look like when you've been conditioned your whole life to be overbearing, controlling, and domineering, whether you acknowledge it at all? You've been reared your whole life to do it all, and when your partner doesn't do it ideally the way you want him to do it, you whine, moan, groan, and complain about that. Or here's something that happens pretty frequently. You enable him because you don't allow him to man up. I've been guilty of it. Been guilty of it. You know, you want things done a certain way, so you do it, you do it, you do it, you do it, you do it. But what happens, going to give you a clinical term, you've heard me use it before, you're now creating a core negative interaction pattern, and your unwillingness to allow him to be the man that, oh, by the way, you chose to be in a relationship with, you allowing him to be the man might mean that it might not necessarily ideally get done the way that you would want it done, but is it necessary for it to be done exactly the way you want it to be done, or is it necessary for it to be done correctly? And as my grandfather used to say, there's more than one way to skin a cat. So it being done doesn't mean you get to be brat mode. And that's a thing. You don't have to admit it to me, but I want you to admit it to yourself that you're fussing, you're complaining. He don't do this, and he don't do that, and he don't do the other, but have you allowed him? And oh, by the way, because we're going to go deep tonight. Oh, by the way, if you say, well, Dr. Pitts, I have allowed him, and he still keeps getting it wrong. You didn't know that? I've learned some things the hard way. There were things that I didn't know. There were things that I overlooked. I've ignored red flags before. And I'm here to tell you that you can't fix the problems that arise as a result of those red flags by continuing to reinforce those core negative interaction patterns. There's going to have to come a point in time where you're going to have to decide whether or not you're going to switch the channel. What do I mean? Okay, do I have your permission to go there? I'm going to go there, right? So you come into a relationship, you have emotional wounds, you have forces that have just run amok in your life, and you coming into a relationship. I'm only speaking to you, to those of you that this applies to. If it doesn't apply to you, disregard. You come into the relationship with all of this luggage that is hindering your growth. But rather than you acknowledging that you came into the relationship with baggage that's hindering your growth, you control, manipulate, dominate. You emasculate. You treat your mate like they're your child instead of your partner. And then you know what people say to me? Well, Dr. Pitts, he acts like a child. You picked him. You picked him. Been there, done that. Wrote a book about it. Hello? Why'd you pick him? Why did you end up in a relationship with someone that isn't at the same level of maturity or even close? Is it because a piece of a man is better than no man at all. The flip side of that is, and I'm going here tonight, so I'm just letting y'all know. For those of you, right now I'm just focusing on the folks, I'm focused on the negative side of I don't need no man. I'll get to the positive in a little bit. But what about those of you who say that you don't need a man or that you don't want a man, but you walking around here bitter and hateful and nasty and stank and ripping people's face off? You just crotchety and contentious and hateful. But what's your problem? Is it baggage or is it in actuality? Because let me just say, and you all know this, just by design of our creation and our creator, we were designed for human connection. And human connection isn't always about sexuality. As human beings, we need human connection. And it's helpful when that that connection has some diversity with it. So here's what I mean by that. If all you do is spend the majority of your time with cackling women, guess what? You're going to end up cackling. If all you do is spend all of your time with your boys and all they doing is watching Booty and Beauty, guess what? You're going to be looking at Booty and Beauty too. It's old school, right? Birds, I said dogs of a feather. Woo! Birds of a feather flock together. You lay down with dogs, you get fleas. You walk into a room where people are smoking, you're going to come out smelling like smoke if you're in there long enough. That's human nature. It's human behavior. So you have to look at what is behind your attitude regarding whether you need a man or don't need a man, want a man or don't want a man. Somebody said something, and I'm going to give the PG version of this, but it's relevant. Somebody said to me that they find it very, very interesting when it comes to lesbians and how oftentimes, I don't know if you are lesbian or if you know any lesbian, I'm not judging or criticizing, I'm just stating an immutable fact. Having friends that are gay and family members that are gay, one of the things that I've learned in the conversations is that usually there's one that straps on. Well, what are you strapping on? Exactly. So you don't want a neater man, but you want the luxury of having male anatomy parts. I'm going to leave that alone. I just wanted to put that out there as food for thought. Because one of the things that I want to encourage folks to think about, because you know me, I keep saying, be honest, be honest, be honest. You don't have to be honest with me. I don't care if you lie to me. But be honest with yourself. What is the narrative? What is the motivating factor? What is the antecedents behind this dogmatic attitude about, I don't need a man for this, that, I don't need a man. I want him, but I don't need him. Okay. And I'm here to tell you that part of that too periodically may land you in a situation where he cheats on you with someone who not necessarily needs him, but makes him feel needed. See the difference? Need versus feeling needed. And before you jump down my throat and send me hate mail and text, think about it this way. For those of you women who particularly have a feminine air about you, there are elements of our existence that make us feel more like a woman. Well, guess what? The same thing is applicable to men. There are certain things that reinforce their masculinity, just like there are certain things that reinforce our femininity. Hence, why part of the emotional struggle that women go through, perhaps, that have suffered from breast cancer and have to have a mastectomy. Because losing your breast or having to have a hysterectomy that doesn't afford you the opportunity to ever give birth to your own children, those things impact how we feel about ourselves and how we view ourselves on a much deeper level. So I want you to think about that narrative, and I want you to think about why that narrative is what it is. Is it driven by how you were raised that may not necessarily be serving you well in your relationships? And here's how you can tell if the narrative is serving you well in your relationships. If you've had repeated broken relationships and the feedback that you're getting from your intimate partners is similar or identical, such as, you so darn independent, can't nobody do nothing for you, you won't ever ask for help, why are you so stubborn, why are you sore headed, why are you talking to me like that, why are you hitting, I'm your man, not your child, what, those types of things, that level of feedback, that's an indication to you that the underlying issue is in that reflection in the mirror. So you have to be honest with yourself, and you have to be willing to explore and hopefully resolve if there's any hurts or bad breaks or things that are happening inside of you that allowing you to feel safe enough to depend on a man. And I don't mean depending on in he has to take care of you and all of that. I don't mean that. I'm talking about dependent upon, first and foremost, for emotional safety. If you find yourself, because you have had all of this unresolved past stuff, if you find yourself in a relationship and you can't allow yourself to embrace being emotionally safe in a relationship, that's a problem that you're going to need to address, because what that tells me is, from the perspective of connection, human connection, having a healthy, loving, fulfilling, and sustainable relationship may be beneficial to you, because there are definitely benefits to being in a healthy relationship. But because you're carrying so many open wounds without even realizing it, your mouth, your attitude, your behavior is causing you to self-sabotage your relationships. Because I'm here to tell you, no decent, respectable, honorable man is going to be okay with his partner treating him like a dog, a child, or an idiot. They're not going to tolerate that. And quite frankly, they shouldn't. So in order for you to be able to get over that hurdle, you have to get greater clarity on what's fueling that narrative of, I don't need a man. In other words, what I'm saying to you is you have to change your channel. You have to change the channel in your thought processes, and you have to be reflective and look back over your life. And this is what I want you to do. I want you to do a comparative analysis as to whether or not your intimate relationships is in any way a reflection of your mother's relationship with your father and or any other intimate partner she's had, or a reflection of your grandmother's relationship with your grandfather or any other partner she may have, your aunties, your cousins, whomever. And I want you to be responsible enough to assess whether or not there is a pattern of relationships and behaviors in your family system, among your friend group, where the norm is, I don't need a man, and you are shooting fire with this mouth. Shooting fire. Because if you have that multi-generational transmission of this problem, guess who gets to break this cycle? You do, if you choose to. And here's what I'm going to say. I said this to a relative some years ago, and I meant this. I wasn't trying to be disrespectful because I see it. I see it clinically, but I want you to think about it. Is how you treat your partner the way that you would want a female to treat your son? Because we as mamas, those of us that are good mamas anyway, we can get a little crazy when it comes to our babies, right? Even when they're grown. But it's how you're handling your man, the father of your children, your husband, your boo, whoever he is. Is that how you want somebody to treat your son? And if that's not how you would be okay with somebody treating your son, why are you okay treating your man that way? All the while making a public service announcement that you don't need him, you just want him. Need you to figure that out. You're going to have to make a decision whether or not you're going to do the switch and begin to take the necessary steps to break those negative cycles that have been passed down to you through your family system. And you've got this family history of all of these broken and volatile relationships. One of the questions that I ask my clients when I'm doing their intake session is their family predominantly patriarchal, matriarchal, or a healthy balance? You would be amazed with the number of families that my client says, you know what, Dr. Pitts, my family is predominantly matriarchal. And what I will tell you is there are some themes. There are some themes that continually emerge in some of those family systems. Not all of them, but in some of those family systems that are predominantly matriarchal, we have an issue with weak men. Not all. There's some. There's definitely some where the men their head is on straight and they were taught to treat women with decency and respect and all of those things, right? But then there's some of them where when you tease it out, the male client is belittled and degraded and demeaned. Y'all seen the Steve Harvey movie Think Like a Man, where the one dude was, his mom was all up in his business and all up in his place and space all the time? Yeah, that's a real thing. That happens. I have seen it in my couples work far too many times. That's a problem. And it's an indication of a matriarchal run household. What's ideal is a healthy balance. And here's the beautiful thing about the healthy balance. You don't have to cohabitate in order for there to be a healthy balance. You've heard me say before that, because of the relationship dynamic between my parents, my mom was definitely the disciplinarian. But to this day, and I'm putting you on blast, mommy, to this day, even though she will never admit it, when my dad puts his foot down and says enough or this is what it's going to be, that's what it is. And my parents, my parents have not been together since I was 9 years old. But there's an interesting connection between them where I believe the mutual respect between them is so strong that both of them know that neither of them is going to say or do anything that's not in the other's best interest. So they respect each other's voice. So that's why that healthy balance is so important. For those of you that are from matriarchal households and everything is cool in the gang and the men know how to be men and the women know how to be women and the lines aren't blurred and everybody's harmonious and singing kumbaya, hats off to you. But that's not what's coming into my therapeutic office. So I want to make sure that people are clear on how to address these problems. And part of how you do that, part of how you get greater clarity on the significance of whether your I don't need a man is positive or I don't need a man is negative, is you gotta you have to look at your family history, and you have to see relationally and independently, what are your strengths and weaknesses or work-ons within your family system. In other words, what have you learned? What have you learned about how to conduct yourself in a relationship? What have you learned about gender roles and flexibility associated within those gender roles, and clinically what we would call unconscious and conscious roles, right? So just because you're male doesn't mean you have to take out the trash. Just because you're female doesn't mean you have to cook and do the dishes and stuff. But how is that family history informing and influencing your patterns of behavior and your attitudes and your belief systems regarding needing or wanting a man, and what that looks like and means to each of you? You get to decide if your family history and everything that is going on is going to fuel your positive and productive conduct and your ability to navigate life in healthy, whole, clinically what we call pro-social ways, or if your family history is going to fuel dysfunction and distress and dis-ease and just this repeated negative cycle of broken relationships, because perhaps at the root you are afraid of connecting. And oh, by the way, because you haven't addressed the underlying issues that are fueling this attitude of I don't need a man, because you haven't addressed those issues, you're not fully present in the relationship anyway, because chances are you have what we call a fearful avoidant or a dismissive avoidant insecure attachment style. You're so terrified of getting hurt. You're so terrified of relationship intimacy, and I'm not just talking about sex. You're so terrified of relationship intimacy that you won't even allow yourself to fully invest in the person, but yet you keep picking dysfunctional or abusive partners, but you blame them for the repeated cycle of you not being able to fully depend on or trust your partner. So now you're at a place in space where you don't need a man. Just saying, something that I want you to think about. I want you to look at whether or not you're demonstrating type A behavior. And I'm going to tease this out on both sides, if I may, because as I said in the beginning, there are absolutely positively women who are at a place and space in their life. It's not that they're male bashing. It's not that they don't want to be in a healthy or a fulfilling relationship, but because of how passionate they are about their work and all of the responsibilities associated with their work and everything else, you have some women who don't want to have children. You have women that legitimately don't want to be married. Pardon me. And it's not because of dysfunction. It's not because of any unresolved childhood trauma or any past relationship that left their heart broken or anything like that. It's just that they're motivated by different forces, if you will. So they're okay periodically dating. They're okay maybe having someone to meet other needs that they may have, but they're not validating their existence externally by the relationship. They're not afraid to commit. Commitment is just not on their checklist of things to do, because they have other things that they have placed higher value on in their life. My husband reminded me, I don't know, a few weeks or so ago, he reminded me that I had told him that I never wanted to be married again. I said, I told you that? He said, yeah. I said, dang, I should have stuck to that. But I did. And as I reflected on when he said we had the conversation, I do remember saying that to him. And here's why I said it. Because it wasn't based on dysfunction. It was based on the fact that having had previous relationships, my first marriage and all of that, that didn't turn out ideally the way that I envisioned that they would, I I've never been a people pleaser per se, but I am very loyal, I am very devoted, and what I did was I put everything that I was and everything that I was about into the people that I loved and cared about. So made sure that my son went to college and did all the things that he wanted and needed to do and got him through school and his activities and football and baseball and basketball and track and trips and all of the things that he wanted to do, that I felt like he needed to do to be a well-rounded human being. I, even with the mistakes that I made in my relationship, I was fully invested in my relationships and I love my family. And anybody that knows me knows that I would give my absolute last for my family. But what happened was I looked up and I had lost Lauren. I had put Lauren and everything that I had hoped for, dreamed about, and aspired for, I had put it on the back burner. And I finally had gotten to a place and space in my life where I actually wanted to be selfish in a healthy way. And I just wanted to focus on me. I just wanted to do me. Not in an inappropriate way, but I just wanted, I told him, I said, you know what? I said, I want to be married to my career. I love what I do. I don't want to be married to a man. I want to be married to my career. And then I changed my mind. And I'm still married to my career, but I'm married to him too. Right? And there are some women out there that actually say what I said, but they mean it and they stick to it. And I meant it, but I didn't stick to it. And now I'm married. And it's like, okay, cool. I changed my mind. So what I'm saying is there are plenty of women out there who, when they say, I don't need a man, they're not saying it to be malicious. They're not saying it from a place and space of dysfunction. They're not saying it from a place and space of woundedness or what have you. Their priorities are different. Their value system is different. And here's the comparison. So if you're looking, for example, maybe at a woman who's saying, I don't need a man, but for real, like she really does, even if it's just for sex, versus someone who's saying, you know what? I'm good. It's like I'm okay jet setting. I'm okay traveling the world. I'm not worried about having children. I'm not worried about being at all the family gatherings and the whole nine yards. More importantly, I want to excel in my career. I want stamps in my passport. I want to be famous. I want to do all of the things. And I'm okay just having a male companion on my arm when I go to get all my awards and my accolades and what have you. Is there a pattern of pressuring yourself and others to accomplish more because there's never enough time? So why do I mention that one? Because one of the things, for example, that my husband says to me all the time, he says that I'm a Scorpio. He's like, you can never outwork a Scorpio. He's like, they will run circles around you. But when you're dealing with someone who has that I don't need a man attitude from a negative perspective, but they're flip-flopping and teeter-tottering in and out of relationships, and this is a question for you, is part of the problem that you're experiencing that because you're driving yourself like a slave master, because you are driven by insecurity to prove to the world that you're all that, the soda, the rebate, and the bag of chips, you're putting the same pressure on him to be a superhero too. And when he doesn't measure up to being the superhero that you're trying to be, you belittle, degrade, demean, emasculate, and say, I don't need a man. Or do you find yourself in this intense competition, subconsciously or consciously, with the man or men in your life, where you're so busy trying to show how independent you are and how you can do all the things and be all of the things without him, that you continue to alienate. And then instead of acknowledging that the condition of your life as it relates to intimate relationships is because of some of the behaviors that you're engaging in, you say, I don't need a man, I'm good. When in actuality, your heart's desire is to be in a fulfilling relationship, but you don't know how to act, or you don't know how to handle it, or you don't know how to convey your fears, or you don't know how to communicate that your heart's desire is to be emotionally, physically, financially, and spiritually safe with this person. Are you one of these individuals that is driven almost to the point of compulsion to win at all cost? So because you pick men that you can beat, you get this internal negative narrative in the back of your mind that says that all men are weak anyway, and they just can't keep up with you, they can't handle you, they can't deal with you. You know what, girl, I don't need no man, I got this. I got this, and I did that, and I did the other, and yak 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 yak. When in actuality, what you're really communicating is you're scared and you're insecure. And because you're scared and insecure of, I don't even want to say being shown up, but because you're scared and insecure of maybe somebody pulling you up rather than you pulling them up, I don't need a man. The flip side of that coin is, if you're someone who says, I don't need a man, and it's not coming from a place of dysfunction, you want to take into consideration, are you competing? Right? Because it doesn't have to be so extreme that it's coming forth as dysfunctional behavior, but are you competing with the men in your life to show them that you're just as strong as they are? Because then the question becomes, why do you have to prove yourself? Why do you have to prove yourself? Why do you have to, if you genuinely and sincerely are okay navigating life solo with the occasional pop-in hookup or whatever it is that you need to have other needs met, why do you need to prove that you can hold it down and do all the things and excel and conquer the world without a man in your life? Are you someone who becomes irritated by your partner's actions, so much so that it again hinders your ability or even your willingness to allow him to show up in the relationship as the man that he is? You've heard me say before, anytime you find yourself navigating life and love and your relationships with this incessant need to control everything, that screams fear. That screams fear, 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 and a degree of insecurity. Because what it suggests is that there have been times in your life where you didn't have control, and that lack of control that you experienced equated pain for you. So now you're trying to control everything and everybody in your life to keep from experiencing pain. So you keep telling yourself you don't need a man, you don't need a man, you don't need a man, but you keep getting one, and you get him and then you run him off because you're scared and you're a perfectionist and you're still trying to get mommy and daddy's approval, and you look in the mirror and you're doing all of this projecting and transferring of all of this unresolved pain and insecurity and dysfunction onto him. But instead of acknowledging that, you just say, I don't need a man. There's going to come a point in time when you're going to need to get honest. You're going to need to get honest with you. It's not for me to say whether, the position that you're in regarding whether you need a man or want a man or don't want a man. All I'm saying to you is that make sure that you're motivated by the right things. The difference between women who say they don't need a man and it's not coming from a dysfunctional place, and those who say that they don't need a man and it's coming from a dysfunctional place, is the positive woman has formulated and implemented a positive attitudinal pattern that allows her to not be dogmatic and rigid about companionship. She realizes that it doesn't have to be or, it can be and. I can have a partner or a companion on my terms because I'm going to be mature enough, adult enough, I'm responsible enough to say, hey, I'm not interested in being married, so if marriage is what you're looking for, I'm not the partner for you. Hey, I absolutely positively love what I do. I want the luxury of being able to travel the world and do all of the things because of the nature of my work. And if you're available when I'm in town, cool, let's have dinner. But for real, I'm totally okay having dinner by myself, a nice glass of wine, a nice porterhouse, and people watching. And I don't feel any less of who I am. I don't feel forgotten or dismissed or diminished because you weren't available to have dinner with me. Versus the negative attitude woman who says, I don't need a man. And it's like, well, if you don't need, why are you so nasty about it then? Like, if that's how you really feel, why you all stink? Why you got, why we have to do all that? Why does it take all of that? Because it sounds like you're bitter. It sounds like you've adopted that narrative because somewhere along the line somebody hurt you. It didn't get resolved. And now you stank about it. Because if it's easy, you know what? It's cool. Think about that. You being able to develop an appropriate attitude regarding the presence or absence of a male companion in your life is going to be, in a lot of ways, the difference between success and failure in your relationship journey. Because isolation is not healthy for long periods of time. That's why it's used as punishment and torture. It's okay. We need our quiet time. We need our me time, to be able to get in touch and to center ourselves and to meditate or to do whatever it is that you do to stay grounded. But being by yourself all the time, we were created for human connection, and there's beauty. There's absolute beauty in having a diversified pool of persons that you can interact with, that can share perspectives and ideologies and gifts and talents and all of the things with you that can help you to stay as well-rounded and as well-grounded as you are. The difference between a woman who says in a healthy way, I don't need a man, versus the woman who is unhealthy and says, I don't need a man, is that the woman who says it in a healthy way has learned how to develop a degree of mastery when it comes to balancing her life. She recognizes that she has the ability to work and manage family and friends and the various parts of our lives. You've heard me mention before that our lives are broken down into domains. We have our overall health and well-being, mind, body, spirit, soul. We have our relationships, whether it's family, friends, colleagues, strangers, it doesn't matter. Our relationships holistically. We have our academic and career trajectory that is going to be a critical domain in our life. We have how we spend our time and with whom we spend our time. And then we have the financial domain. All of these domains have the ability to influence how you think, feel, function, and navigate life. And within those domains, you have to look at how is the absence or presence of companionship influencing and informing how you navigate your domains. It's not for me to say that you do or do not need companionship, but I know what it looks like. I can interact with people and get some insight as to the condition of their life based upon what I learn about how they engage with other people socially. There's patterns. There's behavioral relationship patterns and themes that are going to emerge when you're isolating versus when you're interactive. The woman who says from a healthy place, I don't need a man, versus the woman who says from an unhealthy place, I don't need a man. There's a different degree of pressure that exists that drives behaviors positively or negatively. So, for example, for those of you, and I'm just taking an educated guess. This is just Dr. Pitts' hypothesis. For those of you who are saying I don't need a man and it's coming from an unhealthy place, if I had to roll the dice and guess, I would say you are running yourself ragged working. You are trying to keep yourself grounded as far as, car repairs and house repairs and things going on with the kids, and you're literally a superhero or attempting to be a superhero, but you're depleting yourself. You're tired, you're bitter, you're angry, you're frustrated, you're sick and tired of being sick and tired. You won't admit that you need help. You don't want nobody to help you. You don't trust nobody because you got a dismissive avoidant or a fearful avoidant insecure attachment style, because so many people have failed you, particularly the men in your life. The last thing on earth you want is to have to ask a man for anything, because all the men in your life have ever done is disappoint you. And if that's you, you're tired. Ooh, you tired. You so tired, you angry, you frustrated, you sick and tired of being sick and tired, you're sick of the booty calls because the sex wasn't good no way. All them things. All them things. Some of you, I'm gonna go here respectfully. Some of you are that very female that is absolutely positively okay being the side piece, because when you're the side piece, you don't have to commit. You don't have to emotionally invest. I'm talking about those of you that are okay being the side piece and you don't want him to leave his girlfriend or his wife for you. Because you don't need a man. You just want to go on trips from time to time, grab a bite to eat, get broke off right and proper. Just saying. The woman who says, I don't need a man from a healthy place, realizes that she doesn't have to navigate life like she's in a pressure cooker all the time. It's like, you know what? I've made my position clear. This is what it is. I'm I'm okay taking my car to the dealership to get it repaired. I'm okay, calling, the contract worker to come and fix the plumbing in the house, because I, for real, because I'm traveling all the time for work and I'm doing all the things. I don't have time to be Miss HGTV. I got everybody that I need to do everything on speed dial, and there's no pressure. Maybe some periodic inconveniences because that's the nature of life, but no pressure. No pressure. Positive woman says, I don't need a man. Negative woman says, I don't need a man. There's this ability to develop social and recreational activities as a routine part of your life. But when you're doing that from a healthy place, I'm just rolling the dice. The company that you keep is a different quality of company than those that are navigating life from this bitter, broken place. I don't need a man. Your social and your recreational activities look more like male bashing sessions, and you get together with your girlfriends or your female family members and you talk about how raggedy men are and how sorry they are and you can't count on them for SH and so on and so forth. And you just go in as if to suggest that you didn't make a conscious decision to enter relationships with the men that you entered relationships with, that it failed you. And part of the reason why is because folks got daddy issues, they got mommy issues, they got self-esteem issues, they got all these types of issues that are informing and influencing the selection process. So you just sit around with all your girls swapping hate stories about how sorry your baby daddies are, and he's this, he's that. That's a lot of what the social and recreational activities look like that you engage in. Or let me clean it up. Let me cut you some slack because I don't want y'all to send hate mail or beat me up. You taking girls trips and you Stella. You getting your groove back in Aruba. You getting your groove back in the Dominican Republic. You getting your groove back in Bali. You getting your groove back in Dubai. You getting your groove back in Bora Bora. You getting your groove back in Cabo. You getting your groove back everywhere. And you at times have complained that men just treat you like a sexual object, but you've gotten to such a place and space where you're so defeated and so sick and tired of being sick and tired that you've now started to treat them that way. Just saying. Lastly, women who are healthy and say they don't need a man versus women who say they don't need a man from an unhealthy place and space have a different degree of urgency in their life, and in many instances the healthy women may not have challenges with anxiety, anger, and other self-destructive behaviors. They're chill. It's like, you know what? I'm good, you good, we all good. Where we get like, I know females who travel with friend groups that are male and female, and everybody ain't hooking up and doing the thing. They're just really good friends because everybody is so entrenched in their careers and the things that they want to get accomplished. They're totally okay just traveling and hanging out. Nobody's committed, nobody's stressing, nobody's fretting, nobody's acting crazy, because there's this clear understanding. Versus the woman who says from an unhealthy place, I don't need a man, battling anxiety, battling anger issues, battling self-destructive behaviors, battling resentment and bitterness and unforgiveness and drag nastiness, as my Uncle Tony used to say. Because everything is just urgent. Everything is just so, I gotta get it done, gotta get it done, gotta just driven by all of that toxicity to the point of depletion. So what's the moral of today's story? The moral of today's story is my encouragement to you is to resist the urge to proclaim, declare, decree, and shout from the mountaintops that you don't need a man if that is coming from an unhealthy place. If you are someone who the level of establishment that you have in your life and you have a strong sense of self and you are securely attached and you have dealt with any childhood trauma that you may have experienced and you have dealt with any adult trauma that you may have experienced and you love yourself and you are self-accepting and you are good to you and you set a standard of excellence and greatness of how people need to be treating you, if that's you, I'm cool with you saying, I don't need a man. Because the condition of your life is so healthy that if you decide that you want to enter a committed relationship, my hope for you is that it enhances you, that it adds value to you, that it is icing on your cake of life. But for those of you who are saying, I don't need a man, and it is driven by unresolved trauma, family system dysfunction, nasty, bitter attitudes, resentment, unforgiveness, all of those toxic things, my recommendation for you is to resist the urge to continue with that narrative. Look in the mirror. Get honest with yourself about why that has become your narrative. Address those underlying issues. And then if you decide you still have no interest in having a healthy, loving, and fulfilling, sustainable relationship with a man, that you can demonstrate and show him that he is needed, not in the context that you need him like he needs to burp you and feed you like you're a child, but that he is respected, valued, appreciated, and needed as a value added enhancement to your life. That's my encouragement for you today. That's all I got. That's all I got. As always, I have to go do a session. I'll see y'all next time. Peace.